Welcome to the Too Busy to Eat Show. I'm Greg Zuffalato, the host of the show and also the CEO and founder of Too Busy to Eat, the nutrition product company. Today, we have a fantastic guest on the show, Dr. Brett Hill. But before I introduce him, I want to encourage you to go to toobusytoeat.com, try out our products, use the coupon code TBTE show. TBTE show in the discount box you check out, and you get 20% off of anything on our website. So we got protein bars, you have protein whey chips, protein powder. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Hey, shoot me a message and let me know what you think of the products. And now for our guest today, Dr. Brett Hill, fascinating individual, has done a lot, has written several books. He's by original trade, he's a chiropractor. So he's got that. He's got a lot of experience in nutrition and exercise, but he was a doctor of chiropractic. And he's written a book called How to Eat an Elephant, Simple Solutions for Lifelong Energy and Vitality. He's working on a book called Rock Bottom. He's written a fascinating book for working with your kids on nutrition called Nourishing Without Nagging. And he's, not to mention, he has the #1 health podcast in Australia called The Wellness Guys Show. And he also has a podcast called The Paleo Show. So coming all the way to us from Australia, let's get to the interview with Dr. Brett Hill. Well, welcome, Brett. I'm so excited to have you all the way from Australia to come on the Too Busy to Eat show. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Pleasure to be on board.
Now, this is going to be good. Now, I know you have a little bit of experience in podcasting, so this should be fun.
Yeah, I've done it once or twice before.
Or 500 times. Who's counting,
Yeah.
I know about you. I got to get to know you through, studying what you're doing. But why don't you give us a quick background of a little bit where you came from, how you got to where you are, what really makes you up who you are today?
Yeah, well, I think, what made me who I am today really was, as a kid growing up, I just loved nature. I love the outdoors, and so growing up, I always had this idea that I wanted to help people. And I always had the idea that I wanted to do something, either outdoorsy or really natural, right? So, when I got to sort of deciding what I was going to do for a career, like literally my two options I was looking at was a marine biologist or some sort of natural health practitioner.
Right.
And so I started looking into the different options and where I could go and, weighed them all up. And chiropractic was the one that just sort of fit with me. The chiropractic had this idea that your body needs no help. It just needs no interference,
right.
And I loved that. I looking at natural systems and I just thought, hey, that makes so much sense to me that, if I just give my body what it needs, take away any interference. And obviously as chiropractors, we look at the spine and the nervous system and any interference to the nervous system, then the body will naturally be healthier. And so that sort of started me on a journey where I started, obviously studying and learning a lot about chiropractic. Yes. But that led me to start studying and learning a lot more about food and about exercise and about mindset and all those other things that might be interferences to the body as well. And so I started learning more and more about each of those things. And at some stage, I kind of realized that I knew a bit of stuff about it. But I guess my frustration was that I would go to seminars and events and I'd listen to these amazing speakers, but then I'd walk out the door of these events and I'd speak to people in the general public and they just had no idea about the information that was out there. So I started deciding I wanted to share. I started writing columns in newspapers. I moved to doing some spots on radio. I then wrote a book. I then started a podcast show, which turned into 2 podcast shows, which turned into a whole podcast network, which I think has now 23 podcast shows on it. Wow. And I think I'm now writing, I think it's my 5th or 6th book as well. So it just kind of all spiraled from there.
That is a very positive spiral, but that's a spiral. Or piling them on of information. You go out to help people and you produce a little bit of information. Now you're multiplying yourself because of all your network and everything. That's pretty amazing.
It's amazing the way it works with this online stuff too, right? Like, you put a podcast out and really like our first podcast, we had no idea if anyone was going to listen. And we kind of figured, well, at least our mums might tune in, And 4 months later, one of our listeners actually contacted us and said, do you know you've got the #1 health podcast in Australia? We were like, what? No? How do you find that out? Like, where is the ranking? And they said, oh, well, you got to go to iTunes. And I was like, oh, I don't have iTunes. I better download it. So I literally downloaded iTunes to check our rankings.
Is
be like,
awesome.
hey, that's kind of cool. And but it just grew, just organically. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're producing. Well, you started by saying, you grew up, you love nature, and you want to help people. So the heart behind you, what you want to do is you want to help people, and it just that transmits through what you do. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. And people feel that, and then they share, and there we go.
Yeah. That's what happened. It was very, very cool.
Right. Now, so you're a doctor of chiropractic, and are you still you're still that's part. You have a clinic.
I still have my private chiropractic practice, so Green Hill Family Chiropractic. If any of you are coming down to South Australia,
we want to
look after you down there. It's a great part of the world, and so I still have my practice there. I'm sort of, I work sort of part-time-ish hours, I guess. I'm in there, 4 days a week, but sort of short hours because I do spend so much of my time doing speaking and writing and all the other stuff as well, and some coaching as well. And so, I keep pretty busy.
Yeah. You're too busy. Yeah, that's right. Right. I know you have a good balance, but you do a lot, but you're figuring it out in balance, and you have a family, and so you've learned how to balance everything. I
have. I've learned a lot better now how to balance everything. Right. I think, maybe 5 years ago, I probably wasn't so good at it.
Right.
But now I think I've got a really nice balance of, work and, my passions and my hobbies and sport and lots of quality time with the kids and lots of some time in nature and just sort of balancing that all together. I think I'm doing a lot better now than I used to.
Yeah. Now, any secret to that? How you found it? Because I know at times we get unbalanced because we're doing so. You're like, as you're pushing, you're writing books and you're speaking. Any tricks to how you figured out how to get the balance?
I think the biggest trick for me was learning to say no. I'm by nature very much a bit of a people pleaser. And so people would come to me and say, hey, can you help out with this? Can you, do you want to be involved in this project? And I just go, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, that sounds cool. And many of those projects were projects I was really passionate about. But I think at some stage I just sort of realized that, I think at one stage, I was playing indoor cricket, I was playing outdoor cricket, I was running my practice, I was running the podcast network, I was president of the Chiropractic Association in South Australia, I was president of my cricket club, I had 2 small kids, I was just trying to do everything at once, and it didn't work.
Right.
So it's just really figuring out, okay, well, I have to say no to stuff, and I have to start figuring out what's important to me, and I think that's probably the key thing is figuring out, what's my vision for my life? What do I want for my life? And then figuring out, using that as a filter to decide what to say yes and no to. And as you said, one of the big things for me is life balance and life happiness and having it. I really want to have just like a nice, peaceful life that's easy and healthy, and I want to live the wellness message that I'm trying to share to people. And you can't do that if you're working 20 hours a day. You need to have that balance. And so, really, I think it was just saying no.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good lesson. Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Sometimes it's hard, but you got to think there's only a certain amount of, of time. So if you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something important too. So
exactly. You're always doing it. So it's just whether you're making a conscious choice about when you're doing it, right? So if you actually sit down and analyze, well, what do I actually want in my life? What is actually important to me? Then you can start saying yes to the things that are actually important to you, rather than saying yes to the things that are maybe less important, but maybe more urgent, and so you can really get that focus right.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Now, your book writing. I mean, you've done you have author how to eat an elephant, and then give me a little background on that, and then I want to talk about your newest book coming out. But
cool.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, How to Eat an Elephant was really just born from, I guess, wanting to help people make sustainable lifestyle change. I saw so much stuff of people going on crash diets and 12-week programs and 6-week bikini bodies and all this sort of things, and just not succeeding. Not setting themselves up for success, and not only not succeeding in the short term, but then kind of feeling bad about themselves, feeling guilty about it, and really sort of ending up almost worse off than when they started, and making it harder for themselves to try and succeed again in the future. So How to Eat an Elephant was really just designed as a book and sort of a workbook to try and conquer that. And so the idea is that people could go through, it has like 97 chapters in it. It's all like very short little chapters.
Yeah.
But the idea is you can go through and you can pick something that you would actually like to change, and pick something that's going to be very easy for you to change, pick a very small increment.
Right.
So, rather than saying I'm going to go to the gym, 7 days a week at 6 a.m. every morning, you say, well, I'm going to, if I'm not doing anything, then I'm going to start by going to the gym once a week, and build it up slowly. Yeah. The whole concept is setting yourself up for success. If you can take a small chunk and do it in a way that allows you to succeed and do it in a really sustainable way, then each of those small little steps can build on top of each other. And what ends up happening is you can make, a very big change, over the longer term by making very small changes successfully, because the key is making sustainable changes. There's no good going on a 6-week diet if at the end of the 6 weeks you end up right back where you started. Like, what have you actually gained? You actually haven't moved forward at all. And so this is about sort of this snowball effect of making a little change and then having them pile up from there, which is just far more effective. Yeah,
and that your title speaks to that completely. I mean, you can't eat an elephant in one bite, so just take small little chunks. Yeah, that's great. Now, your new book, Rock Bottom, you're working on that now. Tell us about that.
I am. Well, Rock Bottom is really, I guess, the story of what happened perhaps when I was, doing what I said before, trying to do too much to too many. And so, the result of that ultimately was that my relationship ended. I was married, 2 kids, and ultimately ended up divorced. And that sort of came out of nowhere for me. And so, that was a massive blow to me personally, kind of explode the ego, but also a blow to my vision. I talked before about my vision of what I wanted for my life and what I wanted to do. And really, much of that revolved around my family and my kids, and wanting to create a great environment for them to grow up in, wanting to provide for my family, wanting to make sure that, they had everything they could have. And so, I guess at the time felt like that had just been pulled out from under me. I was very lost. I wasn't sure where to go and what to do. And I think for many people in our society, they feel similar. They've gone through similar experiences.
Absolutely.
Not just guys, but girls as well. But, there aren't a lot of guys out there talking about this sort of a journey. And so Rock Bottom is really a story about, what happened to me and how I tried to deal with that. I tried to deal with it in a very sort of blokey fashion, which is, well, here's a problem I need to fix. I'm going to go fix it. I'm going to find all the tools I need to go and fix it, and I'll make it all better, which was, didn't work very well. It was probably a spectacular failure. But then I guess the journey of what I learned from that and how I did sort of, I guess, rebuild my life from there. The title actually came from a J.K. Rowling's quote, which was that rock bottom was the foundation upon which I rebuilt my life. Which was just a fantastic quote, and it made so much sense to me. And in many ways, it kind of, it made it almost exciting to think, well, okay, everything's fallen out from under me. But the opportunity you have then is to rebuild everything from scratch in a whole new way. And that's really what the book's all about. So, I was literally sitting down last night writing a couple of thousand more words on it. The Hay House in Australia are going to publish that for me, so it's going to be a really cool book. I'm really excited about it.
Is there a published date? I know you're still working on it. I mean, is it?
No, we're not quite at that stage yet. I think hopefully later on this year. But it's going to depend on how quickly I get it done. As much.
It's how many things you can say no to, so you can write your book more.
Exactly.
But that's great. You have a publisher. It's going to be. So we'll look out when that comes out. We'll have to have you back on and get you talk about it again. That's fantastic. Now I'm fascinated, because you cover a lot of different things with. I mean, so. How does chiropractic fit into, for you, into chiropractic, exercise, nutrition? How does that all flow together for you?
It's such a funny question, because it's something I've been spending a lot of work on over the last 6 to 12 months, right? Because everyone says, what's your niche? People will say to me, what's your niche? And I'm like, I don't have a niche. I just talk about what I find interesting. But I guess what I've realized as I've gone along is that I kind of do have a niche. And my niche is that I love talking about nature. I love talking about natural ways. And for me, chiropractic is a very natural approach to healing. As I said, it's about removing interference and allowing the body to heal itself. Understanding that the human body is an incredible thing, and that if you remove that interference and allow it to do what it can do best, it's quite amazing, the ability to not only heal but to perform as well. And so that kind of flows through into exercise, where I talk a lot about natural movement and the movement our body is designed to do, and I guess the movement our body evolved doing. So getting away from the gyms and the machines and all those sort of things, and getting back into real whole body movements, including things like barefoot running, which I've written an e-book about.
Yes,
and I'm currently writing an e-course about barefoot running. So that's something that will come out hopefully in the next couple of months.
Okay.
And so people can, join up for the newsletter and all that sort of stuff and find out about when all these things happen and come out. And then similarly for the food, I have one of my podcast shows is called That Paleo Show, where we talk all about the paleo diet, which once again is just understanding that our bodies are designed to be healthy. We evolved over millions of years to be perfectly suited to a particular environment, which was really just whole, healthy, real foods. And we've gone away from that very suddenly within the last few hundred years, and even really within the last few thousand years, which, whilst it sounds like a long time, is a very short period of time in the evolution of humans. And so, that natural approach to food is that say, well, look, what's our body designed to require? What isn't our body designed to require? How can we give it more of the things that it needs and less of the things that it doesn't? Because when we do that, our body's natural expression of health is just much higher.
Yes, and that just by eating the things we're supposed to, you remove, like you said, you remove the interference. That's those things that aren't meant. That's what causes the inflammation, the problems.
The vast majority of our supermarkets are full of things that our body would not even recognize as food.
No. If it's in a box, you think, well, it's been removed quite a bit from where it's originated. That's fantastic. Now, exercise, you like to get out. Now you've done some CrossFit stuff too. So but do you like to do that more in a natural setting? Because you can do CrossFit all kinds of different ways.
No, at the moment I'm doing CrossFit in a box. So I go to the gym. I do that 3 times a week. I'm doing the CrossFit Open at the moment. That's
yes.
That's going on.
How's it going?
It's tough. It's I'm in my first sort of 6 months of doing CrossFit, so I'm still a relative novice in terms of skills, and so I'm certainly not at the elite level there. But I was really happy with how it went first time round. So 1 week in, I'm feeling pretty good about it. It wasn't too bad. And but it was tough. I was gassed afterwards. But I love doing the CrossFit. But as I said, I some of the people there in the box will do it 6 times a week. I do it 3 times a week, and I find that works well for me. And I like to combine it with other natural movements. So I like getting outdoors, particularly with the kids, and playing in the playground. That's one of my favorite things to do is play in the playground with the kids. And we kind of have these games we play where essentially I say to the kids, look, you go wherever you want to go, and Dad's job is to follow you, right? So we climb over things and under things and around things, and it's a great way to exercise.
Fantastic.
We also go for lots of we go for hikes. We've got a kayak, so we get out on our kayak and paddle around. We do some snorkeling. We get out into nature and just do lots of that sort of fun natural movement and natural play. We wrestle, we climb things, jump on things, just that natural movement, which I think I find that a really good balance. I love doing CrossFit because I love the capabilities I get from doing that. But the reason I love doing CrossFit is really because it allows me to play more with my kids. It allows me to play more with my friends. If one of my mates calls me up and says, "Hey, we're going rock climbing tomorrow. Do you want to come along?" I know I can say yes. Because I've done the work to mean that my body is capable of doing the things that I would love to do. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, if we can learn to be more childlike in our health, other than eating bad foods, because my kids would love to eat bad foods if I let them. But playing and being in nature, it's great.
And just that curiosity of kids is a beautiful thing. One of the other books I've written is called Nourish Without Nagging, and it's all about how to get kids to love eating healthy food.
That's
and
great.
It really is playing into their curiosity, is helping them understand why they would want to eat healthy food. My motivation is to go out and play with the kids and to do all those things, but their motivations are totally different. I might want them to eat healthy food because I want them to get sick when they're older. They don't care about getting sick when they're older. They don't even understand what that means. Their motivation might be to run faster or to do ballet. Or, my son wants to be an engineer and build a flying car, So we have a conversation with him about how, him eating healthy and him exercising is going to help him get what he wants. And that's a totally different conversation. So, you'd be surprised with the kids. You play into that natural curiosity of theirs, and you really can get them on board with you and actually wanting to eat healthy stuff, which is awesome.
which is great. Now, knowing your story, you had kind of an unhealthy childhood. Did that really push you to get this book written?
Yeah, it was something I was really passionate about. I mean, I never thought of my childhood as being unhealthy, to be honest.
Okay.
I grew up, and I was constantly sick. I had constant colds. I was probably on antibiotics about half a dozen times a year.
Right.
I always had trouble getting to sleep. It used to take me 2 or 3 hours to get to sleep each night. Yeah. I was asthmatic, so whenever I exercised, whenever I, had a cough or a cold, I always got really wheezy. But I just thought that was normal. Everyone seemed to think it was normal. The doctor would just give me the antibiotics. They'd give me the Ventolin. They'd say, away you go, you'll be fine. And it wasn't really until I discovered chiropractic and started changing my lifestyle that I realized what normal was. Actually, I think this is the case for many people in our society. In Australia, about 77% of our population have some sort of chronic long-term health condition. Yeah. So for many people, normal is actually chronically ill, or they think normal is chronically ill, when actually what they confuse is common with normal. And so what's common is for people to actually not be very well at all. And what's normal is actually what we would consider often quite an extraordinary level of health.
Right.
And so that was a big change for me. And that obviously made me, just learning all the information I'd learned about health and wellness and how that could affect people's health, but also how it affected my health and how it affected my life, meant that, when I had kids, that was a big push for me, not only to do better in terms of my health, because they became a massive motivator for me to do better in my health, because I wanted to be, the best dad I could be and the best example I could be for them. But also then, I wanted to figure out how I could help them want to grow up in a healthy way. And that was really the key. I knew that, and I've quickly realized that if I was just going to try and tell them to be healthy and they were going to, do healthy things because I told them to, then that was going to be a very quick, short-term solution. It's kind of a quick fix, because, I was now separated from my ex-wife. And so, they were eating different things in both homes. They were not getting as much healthy food. They were getting different messages in each home. They go to their grandparents' house and they might get a different, food. They go to school and they get different influences from all their friends at school. And so I quickly realized that me just telling them what to do wasn't going to cut it, because there was going to be a whole lot of time when I wasn't there. And if they only did it because I told them to, then as soon as I wasn't there, they were going to go and do something totally different. And so I realized that I was going to have to, communicate with them, educate them about why they would want to do it. And that was where that whole Nourished Without Nagging book came from. And to be honest, it's to this date probably one of the most rewarding things I've done. I get messages regularly from parents. I just think of one the other day. A parent just sent me a message saying that she had this conversation with her son about spinach and why spinach was going to help him have bigger muscles so he could run faster, because that was what he wanted to do. And she said he sat down that night for dinner, and for the first time he ate all of the spinach on his plate and even asked for a little bit more. And for me, that is just I literally get goosebumps as I'm telling you that story, because to think that you could be having that sort of impact on a family. I think they were in Australia, but some of the families even over other parts of the world, is extraordinary. And it's incredibly heartwarming to think that something you wrote might have that sort of an impact on someone's health and ultimately on their life. So it's a really rewarding book, that one. I'm very proud of.
That is a really important book. I just know from having my own kids. That's and always preaching nutrition to them, but they have to explain it at their level, explain it to where it makes sense to them. I didn't realize until I started writing the book. In fact, I'd even pretty much finished writing the book, and I started looking at, obviously promoting the book and talking about it. And it wasn't until then that I really looked around to see what else was out there and realized that there really is nothing out there about how to get your kids to eat healthy. There's a lot of stuff about what they should eat and lots of different opinions on that. And I deliberately avoided, giving an opinion on what kids should eat. And, so as I said, I choose to follow a paleo diet, but I didn't want it to be a book about getting kids to eat the paleo diet. I feel like every parent knows stuff they can do to help their kids eat healthy. And every parent has a different idea of what healthy diet is. I just wanted to help them be able to teach their kids to choose to and want to eat healthier food. And I guess as much as anything, sort of change some of the dinner table conversations from being this kind of argument backwards and forwards between the parents and the kids,
and change that to actually the parents and the kids on the same team, discussing mutual goals and how they can work together to get what they both want, which is so much more rewarding, so much more fun, so much less stressful conversation to be having around the dinner table.
Yeah, that yes, because you're working together instead of against each other, which is fantastic. Now let's go back and talk about last thing I want to get. If somebody out there is like a really, Too Busy to Eat is the show, so they're too busy. They're on the go.
Yeah.
They have maybe somebody has a family, and let's use that. They have their kids. There's all these things, all these precious career, and they're unhealthy at the time. What would I know there's a lot of different factors involved, but what would be the step you would say? Where to start here? One piece of advice to start for this person.
I would say just keep it simple. Like, I think so often we get so distracted by all of the information that's out there about healthy food, what we should be doing. You look on Instagram and you see, these 3-layered raw cheesecakes, and what people need to remember is that when you look on social media or you look on the media, what you're seeing is people's highlights. Right. You're seeing the kind of cool, interesting things they do every now and then. If you looked at my Instagram, you'll see these interesting birthday cakes I made for the kids' birthdays, which were these like raw paleo cheesecakes, and they're really cool. And you'd probably think that I eat that sort of stuff all the time, but most of what I eat is just really simple stuff. It's like meat and 3 veg. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy to prepare. So, I'm republishing Nourish Without Nagging at the moment. It's actually going to come out for the first time in a hard copy. It's been published by Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint.
Oh, yes. Really cool. Great.
And I've actually put in there a whole bunch of recipes, which are just like really simple, easy recipe. Because I'm time poor too. I've got 2 kids. I'm doing lots of work. And frankly, I don't want to spend my whole time in the kitchen cooking dinner. I'd rather be at the park playing with the kids and then run home at the last minute and whip something up quick. So just keep it really simple.
That's great.
Batch prepare is a great thing to do. So on a Sunday, just make up a big lot of bacon and egg muffins in a tray. Make up a big quiche, make up a big shepherd's pie, whatever it is. Something you can. It doesn't take you any longer to cook, but you just make more of it.
Just make more of it. Yeah.
So that it makes it easy for you for the rest of the week. So I do a lot of that sort of stuff. Generally in my house I got a bone broth on the go pretty much the whole time. It just sits in the slow cooker, keeping warm, and so I can just have that whenever I want. Or if I'm in a rush, I'll have a smoothie. I just chuck some stuff into the blender. I always make sure I've got some healthy fats and proteins in there as well as the carbs. So it's not just fruit, but it's things like nuts and coconut cream and avocados and things that's going to help fill me up a little bit more, rather than just a sort of a juice smoothie, which can end up being quite a lot of sugar.
Right.
But those more filling meals, even though it is a sort of liquid meal, if you get more of the fats and the proteins in there, that can really tide you over really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Simple stuff.
Yes, simple stuff. So to find out more about you have a lot going on. So drbretthill.com that's where they can get your newsletter. That's where they can get your podcasts, They can find it all.
They can do all that sort of stuff there.
Okay. We'll have all that information, and we'll have the information on your podcast and other in the show notes, but drbretthill.com is where we gotta go to find out. And your books, which is fantastic.
And all the books are there. All the details about the coaching that I do is there. So you can find out all that stuff all at the website.
Man, I can't tell you, this has been, you've inspired me, because now I'm going to go tonight. I'm going to start the dinner conversations and explaining this is fantastic. Yes. You've reached somebody right before we even get this thing going. You've reached somebody. So
that's exciting.
I really appreciate you taking the time from, halfway around the world. And it's pretty exciting to be able to talk to you. And I wish you the best. I'm excited to have your books. When the book's coming out, I will definitely be on your mailing list. So, So thank you so much. This is great.
Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon.